I would like now to hand over the floor to Jannica Budde, who will give us an overview on digitalization in general. She's working at the Hochschulforum Digitalisation, which is a think tank that encourages the discourse on higher education in the digital age. So, hi, Jannica, and welcome. Nice to have you here. The floor is yours.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for having me and giving me the chance to hold a talk, which might be quite old-fashioned in some weeks. We don't know yet. So I was supposed to hold this talk in the middle of March, a German conference, which was, of course, cancelled. So yeah, thank you very much for this. And I try to share my screen with you. So hoping you see. Perfect. Yes. So what I want, as Laura said already, I want to give an overview about what is digitalization, or what do we really talk about when we talk about digitalization in higher education at the moment. So as already said, I'm working for the Hochschulforum Digitalisierung, which is a think tank, but also a national network for higher education in a digital age. And to make it short, we see ourselves as the one who orchestrates the discourse in higher education. It is an initiative by several German organizations in the field of higher education. And we see ourselves as the platform to bring together several stakeholders from universities, politics, business, and society. We do this with a variety of activities in our network, for example, with podcasts and webinars, with cooperations with other players in the field here in Germany, with giving information with several papers or working groups who publish the results, and as well with a peer-to-peer strategy counseling program, which is basically the field I'm working in. So to give you an overview about recent development and future trends in this field of digitalization, it's of course right now more pre-COVID-19 or pre-corona point of view. We really have to see what's changing in the next few weeks or months. How topics change, how the discourse changes on digitalization in higher education. I think we see already slight changes in the discourse. But first, I want to give you some impressions or some topics we talked about in in the last years. So one thing perhaps to keep in mind for the view into the future and what's changing in the face of Corona might be the 2020 Horizon report. It's trend reporting by EDUCAUSE, which tries to identify emerging technologies and practices and basically trends in the field of digitalization for higher education. And for this year, so to speak, they identified the following 6 areas of technologies and practices, which is adaptive learning, artificial intelligence and machine learning, analytics, or basically it's learning analytics, the elevation of instructional design, open educational resources, and XR technologies. I don't want to go here into detail because I will talk about some of these trends later. What I found very interesting in the Horizon report here is, I think, for the first time, they kind of try to predict the success of these 6 technologies and practices. So they use this five topics for a ranking structure in order to be able to predict some success for these topics. And this is one part where I identified these topics I want to talk about, but of course they also come from our experience at the Hochschulforum Digitalisierung with our various activities. So this is the overview. So under normal circumstances, I would simply call it from e-learning to blah, 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 because we saw really a shift in strategic discussions in universities here in Germany from mere e-learning, from simply getting staff or teachers to adopt blended learning scenarios, so on and so forth, to really dive deeper into this area of digitalization, what really does digitalization means for universities. And as I said, as you can see, it's really more than e-learning or online learning. The first area we see is that there's a really big shift in strategic thinking about digitalization from e-learning, from simply from methods and scenarios towards digital competences and skills, and to really change curricula in order to prepare students for a digital age. We have all the fields of future skills, digital literacy, data literacy, and what we can also say, that's not only about digital skills. All this discussion about skills really help to bring back quite traditional skills, self-competences, of reflective competences, and so on and so forth, to really prepare students for the future. Perhaps to see the importance of this topic, this chart shows a non-representative study of universities who applied for a peer-to-peer strategy counseling program, and where we see about 25% gave the reason why they applied, why they want to strategically further develop their teaching was to prepare students for a digital working world, so to speak. The second topic is a little bit bigger and a little differentiated, but first we see this idea of combining offline and online learning. In recent years, universities, I think not only in Germany, but perhaps worldwide, saw this discourse about MOOCs and about online learning, and really said, no, we're brick and mortar universities. We need the physical space to learn. It was really a big it's a self-image that the university needs to really be a place where people meet, where people come together. When you dig a little bit deeper into this idea and talk with students, with staff, with higher education management, as we do in our counseling program, we saw that it's really about an understanding of the university as a place of collective learning, of really bringing people together to learn. And since digital technologies enable or help or strengthen individual learning, enable flexibilization and inclusion for learning, people are more and more open to really combine digital and face-to-face learning settings. So it's not really important where people learn, but that they learn together, but also in a flexible setting. So quite a holistic view of learning. And the next step of this, and really many universities in Germany talk about this, is not only learning, the university as a place of collective learning for students, but also opening the university towards the community, for example, with maker spaces, and to really engage with their community. The first step in this, or one very big topic in this, is rethinking learning spaces. As you can see here, an example of Code University of Applied Science in Berlin. Many universities start to rethink physical spaces for making them more flexible, so it's really getting to intertwine, so to speak, physical spaces with online spaces. The second part of this is that it's also about skills or competences, or to rearrange spaces in order to support competence development. So to speak, space as a third teacher to sorry. I want to show two new approaches in Germany to reshaping physical spaces. The first is by a private University of Applied Science in Heidelberg. The other one here is the library of the Technische Hochschule Mittelhessen. And perhaps to have a deeper look into this concept, we see a more open spaces, more welcome spaces. We see spaces which can be used in multiple ways and offer a variety of flexibility for students to use these spaces for learning in groups, having the possibility to rearrange tables and chairs, to use materials and so on. The same here with the example of the library at the Technische Hochschule Mittelhessen, where we have multiple space scenarios in one room, which with technical access and support, as well as getting informal meeting space into the library, and so changing also the role of libraries in Germany. The second topic, and we saw that also in the Horizon report, is open educational resources. Open educational resources is a very hot topic, so to speak, in Germany. We have many initiatives for this, for example, even OER Barcamp. But still we think it's not really used that much. It's really part of strategic discourses in universities as well in the Länder. For example, Hamburg, or the 8 universities in Hamburg came together to open the Hamburg Open Online University, which is a platform which offers several courses which can be used by other teachers as well as the interested public, and even not only the public in Hamburg, but some courses were also kind of exported to South American and African countries where they really had a deep impact, for example, in agricultural learning, or teaching and learning. So open educational resources are not only about sharing learning materials, but also the opening of academia towards the general public, and really to support this idea of collective learning. And when we talked with universities or with staff in universities about this future scenario of collective learning, where really people where people really come together to learn, where to gain competences. There was a question: do we really need any theoretical exams in this scenario? But how do we monitor student success? And one answer might be learning analytics as a quality assurance means, but also to reduce dropout rates. And as said, it's a prerequisite for the development and use of adaptive learning or individual learning. Of course, the great challenge is the privacy. And in Germany, especially, students are very, very sensible towards privacy, and many student association fear that that students may be controlled and not really helped. So we see that in Germany there's more acceptance by students for student-centered approaches than instructor or intervention-centered approaches. That means that students have control over their own data, that not a strange person like a student advisor or so sees the data. What it's about the control should be at the side of the student. But right now we mostly see pilot projects in this field. There's no mainstream or a shared understanding of how learning analytics should work. It's very strange not to see you when I speak. We have a third topic is more of an organizational topic, and regarding service structures and instructional design. So at the same time, we saw the rise of digitalization. We also saw a rise in the professionalization of higher education teaching. So, and in recent years, there were many structures were developed so to support academic staff who teaches, and new jobs were created as, for example, instructional designers who help teachers or staff who teach in order to develop their online learning materials. In Germany, this is quite a new development. We have very few universities who have these kind of people on their payroll, and we really see a development here. For example, some colleagues of mine did a comparison on the situation in Germany with the situation in South Africa, where university have like 10 to 15 instructional designers. So I think it's really a development necessary for the further development of online learning and digitalization. So next. Of course, when we talk about digitalization, we speak about technologies. And in recent years, we saw a rise of technologies or education technologies, but I think we're still in the proof of concept phase here. So many researchers, academics test these technologies for their teaching. There's in many disciplines, there's discourse on how certain technologies can help for teaching and for their subject, so to speak. For example, also the digital humanities, to combine teaching, of course, with research. But there is no strategic development here that universities say we want to be the university using remote labs, or so we're still in this, as I said, in the proof of concept phase. And I think it's even more than just using technologies, but also the question: how does this do these technologies change our understanding of education, and how will these technologies really have an impact on what do we understand of higher education? So it's also, and that's the last topic I want to talk about, it's the question, or the idea that digitalization means rethinking higher education. That the digital technologies help us to rethink higher education and learning path in higher education. So perhaps the starting point is the idea that the digital age is an age of learning, where learning is the central characteristic of this digital age. We already see a heterogeneous student body and a growing heterogeneous student body, and this understanding of the digital age as an age of learning means that we have to give more people access to higher education. And this will, of course, change the higher education landscape. We already know that there will be a further differentiation of higher education, and we kind of predict, or the study I show you here predicts a coexistence of different learning paths in higher education. There is really less homogeneous how people can study, how people get gain knowledge and competences. We already see some starting points here with, and we can expect a qualitative change in the demand of study programs. For example, with smaller credential systems like MicroMasters, or stronger competence-oriented formats. And we already see new education providers outside the traditional higher education sector, such as Minerva School or 42 in France, where simply these new ideas of learning path are explored. And to give you an example of the study I cited earlier, they developed 4 models of higher education in 2030, so how higher education could look like in 10 years. Some of these are quite not really new. How higher education looks today as well. We have this idea of there's one big block before going to the job market, or even the other way around, to come from the job, the working world towards higher education, but as a closed system. Other models, this unbundling of credentials, as I said earlier, where in different intensity credits are obtained in smaller settings with different providers, and where students more and more are responsible for their own education. So again, this is the overview I gave from different the different topics when we talk about digitalization. So it's not really about learning digitally or virtually or online, but also about a bunch of different topics. Universities, but also have to think about when they want to develop their learning and teaching strategically further. And yeah, we will simply see what this means, what this topic means in the face of the COVID-19 crisis, what will change. What will change, what will perhaps be more important. Perhaps we're going back to this idea of e-learning, more and online learning, but I don't think that any of these ideas, will be forgotten. So thank you very much. I might hopefully change back to my video, and I'm very interested on your question. So the first question was, is there any difference between digital competences and entrepreneurial competences? Actually, I'm not the expert on entrepreneurial competences, but they are discussed separately at universities, I would think. We have when we talk about digitalization, we mostly talk about stuff like digital literacy, so competence to really interact in a digital world, to interact with data as data literacy. But I would say entrepreneurial competences is a whole other set of competences. But I think they are part of each other person. But as I said, it's not really discussed on this framing. Then another question. From your point of view, is there an intrusion of academic freedom with the introduction of digitalization? That's a good question, and it's a question of, which is very hard to answer, because it's what teachers or staff who teachers really fear, that they lose their freedom of teaching, and that's why many teachers reject digital development in the sector at universities. And I think we're still on the stage, or we were on the stage, where it was important to, from the point of view of universities, to give room and space for developing digital scenarios to come to terms with this this change. We're still discussing this question, because it's a very important question. But I would think there are always certain levels of intrusion from university management, from curriculum design, from self-images of universities, to what they want to teach, what's important. So, I think we have to really watch this and see what's happening with this idea of, or this question of academic freedom. And so Isabel asked, with how many universities did you work? So as I said, I'm a coordinator of the peer-to-peer strategy counseling program, and we already worked in the last 3 years with 18 universities, and from these I accompanied 6 or 7 personally. One question. So we helped them to set up this workshop with 3 experts from our community, where we then discuss several topics in regard to their strategy process toward for higher education learning. And that's basically the questions they have. So how do we set up a system for students to gain the right competences, and competences are changing, and so how do we set up our systems for ongoing development of curricula and study programs. Then service structure is still an important question, especially in the phase of financing. In Germany, in the last, I would say, 10 years, many universities developed service structures, but they were funded mostly from state funding programs, which will end this year, and we don't know what will happen at universities that they can really hold this level of service for teachers at universities. So that's a very good question. Funding, of course, how to fund this development, to new structures, infrastructure. Yes, this is one question. And really this idea of developing a vision for digitalization at the individual university, what digitalization means for them, what digitalization can do in order to help with the individual profile. And what I said earlier, in the field, this idea of flexibilization of individual learning, adaptive learning is very important for universities in Germany. Yes, are there other project organizations? Yes, if you are from a similar organization, you can simply say hi. We know that in the Netherlands there's Schrepf. For this idea, we really work together to with the Netherlands universities to further develop really digitalization on the level of the country, of really getting, how to say that, really find new structures and collaborations within the Netherlands to really improve the quality of teaching and learning there. But I'm always curious about similar innovation, similar organizations, and learn. So I was faster than I thought I would be. So
maybe we should just wait another second if any questions coming and or thoughts are coming in. So here we go.
What's a negative aspect of the digitalization in higher education? Let's see. Well, that's also very interesting, but hard question to answer, because we're, I would say, in a stage where it's still very experimentation and trying to set out the structures for this learning, with more pilot projects than really mainstream levels of what digitalization means. But there's, of course, this fear of alienation of that individual learning means really learning. Everybody learns for him or herself, and not there's no collective aspect, no interactive aspect with this. So there are many fears what digitalization means. And there, of course, there are many fears in regard to privacy concerns. How really don't turn students into kind of see-through students, where every step of them is controlled and analyzed. But I wouldn't say that there's some kind of negative aspect of digitalization. I think it's important for every teacher, but also for every university, to really think about and to discuss what digitalization or digital technologies should aim for, what the real strategic directive is for further development of teaching and learning. It's not about digitalization per se, but as I showed you, about changing teaching and learning and the structure of teaching and learning, and the digital technologies is the one which supports, which enables this process. But it's very important not to think, oh, we do digitalization and change they have digitalization as an end, as an end of itself. So, but really see it as an enabler for something. I think it changes the perspective of digitalization or on digitalization. But very interesting question to consider.
So are there any more questions? Feel free to post them into the chat. I suggest that we wait another minute. And then we can do anything other in between. But...
Yeah, for example, I might talk a little about what we do in the Hochschulforum Digitalisierung. At a certain moment, we really try to use our network and our community to help and to understand what this means for this crisis means for higher education. Not to look for my slide, but also to support higher education institutions, but also to share information and experiences, and so contributing to solution in this crisis. As said earlier, it's the same in Germany, at the University of Sheffield, it's the same in Germany. We see a delay or the lockdown So we saw a closing of campuses and the postponement of our summer semester. We were kind of in the lucky situation, to speak, that this lockdown happened in the middle of the semester, semester holiday, so to speak. And most universities have decided to switch to an online semester. It's always also still the question, how much semester can we do this year? But we see a rapid acceleration of the digital transformation of many people have to now think about online teaching. But we see that most universities and also most teachers are really not prepared for the situation. So we really want to contribute to the solution in the situation, and share being a platform to share experiences and information on digital learning, online learning, and so on and so forth. We, in the situations immediately as it was known that there will be a delay in the summer semester, we formed a crisis committee with experts from universities here in Germany, and really to get a feeling what should we do as a Hochschulforum Digitalisierung, which activities or which offerings are needed. We developed a service site with information, but also opening our site for statements from students, from higher education management, from teachers, to really open a discussion on our various channels about the situation, about what this means, how much is possible to transfer from face-to-face learning to online learning, and what does it mean for students. This is that they are not kind of losing a semester because of the COVID-19 epidemic. It's also, I said earlier, about exams, about crediting, and it's really, I was said, really trying to go step by step and develop new formats, for different stakeholder groups. For example, we initiated immediately a weekly coffee break, a digital coffee break webinar where teachers can come together to discuss problems, experience, to help each other. And we're now starting one especially for higher education management, also with the aim to discuss challenges in the situation, to find solutions, and simply to know what can we do as a Hochschulforum to support universities. And perhaps it might be interesting for you, we started a known hashtag on Twitter to start this discourse on teaching, to build this new platform, new community. And if you like, you can join us in this conversation from your different point of views on Twitter, on other platforms, using this hashtag, because we're really interested also in solutions, in discussions in other countries, and really to work towards a good solution. Because as I said earlier, we don't know what's happening with higher education, with all this recent development in the last years, and really want to use our experience in the field of digital innovation, of digital transformation in higher education, to support universities and individual teachers as well as students in the situation. So please join us. And perhaps to add this, even this is a very challenging situation for a lot of people here in Germany, as well as elsewhere. We saw really a movement, so to speak, where teachers or academic staff with teachers comes together on Twitter, on other platforms, really where there's the development of new communities of practice, so to speak, where from the disciplines, information platforms are developed, and where information is given on online learning, where people really come together in this situation to help each other, and that's very great, I would say. And we see it's really a change for further development of the digitalization of higher education, teaching and learning. And we simply have to see what's happening now.
So thank you very much, Jannica. That was really, really interesting and informative, I think. So if there are no more questions to post onto the chat, I would suggest that we have this kind of chat roulette that was planned for 2:30 already now. And you could just grab a glass of water or coffee or something, and then we will, great. So here we have the first one. This is necessary. And then we would just start a kind of chat roulette with the participants, but I would would love to have you back at the stage at 2 o'clock to welcome Dustin. He's going to be our last speaker for today. He's going to introduce to us another tool. So we had Hopin earlier, and he's going to present to us MS Microsoft. So for now, what I would like to say is to invite you to the networking area. At the bottom right of your screen, there should be 2 hands, which should be depicted handshakes. And you could just click on them, and you will be connected to other participants and chat with each other. So this was the kind of idea to have you all connected afterwards together. You can even turn on your videos and really talk to each other. But I would really love to have you back at, in 15 minutes, so to say, to welcome Dustin and to have an introduction on the MS Microsoft. Thank you so much, and see you in a minute.
I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Let me just turn my camera back on. Right, there we go. So I was hoping to share my screen with you, but I don't think that it's showing. If you follow that link that I've sent to you, I'm just going to talk through this presentation. You don't need to log in. So Teams, what can you use it for? You can use it for collaboration with colleagues on a single project or multiple projects, to have open or private collaboration or chats as well, and learning and teaching of modules or entire programs, through the use of Teams. So it really depends on what you are hoping to use it for. It is what you make it, basically. Sorry, my screen is loading. Okay. So what does Teams consist of? Basically, when you create a team, you have a few things. You have channels which are specific purpose. Your team can be private or public. So if your university has Office 365, you should have Teams enabled. If not, your IT services can maybe put you in touch with how to get it enabled. But again, I'm not sure if you can see my screen. There are different ways that it works. Within a team, you can have specific channels for a specific purpose, which can be topics or themes or projects, depending on the desires of the users. For a module, you could do it week by week. Again, it really depends on you and your students. On one example, for one program that we have a module, a channel per module, and this is to kind of divide out everything. I'll try and share it again. Yes. I'll try and share it again. Sorry about this. I don't know if you can see what I'm sharing at the moment. It should be my entire screen. Can you see that? If you cannot see it, then don't worry, because if you click on the link, I'm going through that presentation, which should take you to everything, although it looks like nothing can be seen for some reason. Right, so going back to the structure of Teams, basically, you have a team which has channels, which has tabs, and then files, of course. And you can add on additional tabs as well. Again, if you click on the link which I've shared into the chat, you should be able to follow along with that. So communications options, again, you can have informal one-to-one private chats. You could have private group chats, which is good for a group of students or multiple groups of students. Another way, of course, you can have announcements in a channel so that people can share information in an open way, which can help accelerate decision-making, problem-solving, and solution sourcing. And what I think I really like is you can have different things such as announcements, which are a bit better than Moodle or perhaps Blackboard because you can put labels. You can, use HTML markup. You can change the text a bit. You can manipulate it. You can attach files as well. You can also have just conversations, which is just kind of like starting a new topic with someone or with the whole group. Announcements are particularly useful, though, to get everyone's attention. And again, you can have a subject, a title, a subject, and so on. Moving on, you can use Teams, again, on a desktop, a tablet, through the browser, or even a mobile phone. I highly recommend that you perhaps get the program onto your computer and perhaps your phone as well, if you want to use your phone. It's a bit better than using the browser-based client for a few reasons, mainly because it's easier just to chat and stay in touch with people. You can also use it to just have a video conference or an audio call. So you can use it almost as if it were a phone or Skype. In terms of collaboration, it links in very nicely with Outlook, OneNote, OneDrive, and of course all of the apps such as Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. So when you share something within a team, they can easily edit it within that team as well. So you could create a Word document within a team and then people could edit it. As far as meetings, this is perhaps the most important thing from everyone at the moment. Mm-hmm. Within a team, you can invite people in to have a meeting. You can do it in a few ways. You can do it through Outlook, or you can do it through the team itself. So if you have a team and you have a channel, you might call that channel weekly meetings. And then that is where you will have your weekly meetings every week. Or on the other hand, if you're working with students, and you're going through different topics, on a weekly basis or just maybe a few weeks weekly basis, you could have a workshop held in that channel around, say, research methods. And you could even further subdivide it, quantitative research methods or qualitative research methods, and so on and so forth. Is it necessary to have a Microsoft account to participate in a team? Isabel is asking, yes, it is. Again, if your university has Office 365, then from what I understand, if your IT services have turned on Teams, then you should have access. Having said that, I've heard just very recently that Microsoft has made Teams available for everyone. I can't confirm that at the moment because I haven't had a chance to look. But yes, you do need a Microsoft account to participate in a team. You can be a guest in a team, but if you're a guest in a team, there are certain other restrictions for various reasons. Now, in this document I've shared, there's in-depth guidance on various things. I've included training links, also how to hold meetings, manage your notifications, because managing notifications is very important. You don't want to get emails and audio or visual notifications of a message. Also, training yourself up and quick start. The Microsoft Educator community, I've kind of played around with it. It's quite nice. The training is very relevant to what we're doing in higher education or even school. And it can show you many, many different ways of kind of engaging with Teams and also teaching yourself how to use Teams, but also the other things like OneNote and so on and so forth. Again, I would check with your university or college, IT services to see if you have Teams available. At least in the UK, most universities that have a subscription to the Office 365 apps seem to have the Teams functionality turned on. So yeah, so again, that's really it. That's all I wanted to kind of do. I've created this presentation that's, again, very much in brief. So there's obviously a lot more out there, but I've tried to collate many things in one place to make it as easy as possible for you. Would you have any questions that I could perhaps answer for you? No questions, perhaps? My experiences, so I've used it with a few different programs. I work at the Lancaster University Management School. So one of our lecturers is using it with first-year students, and he's found it incredibly useful for engaging the students in a different way. I will explain Sway in just a minute. Yeah. But this lecturer, he teaches business and entrepreneurship. He's found it very useful to keep in touch with his students, to make announcements. It's a good kind of way to augment what Moodle is doing. Moodle is great for hosting, the video content, this kind of thing. However, Teams is great for collaboration, chats, quick meetings, especially now that we have to all stay home. It's particularly good for that kind of thing. As far as Sway, Sway is great for presentations. The way I make a Sway is, for example, this presentation, I authored it in Word. I used the headings and the title, what is it? Title, heading 1, heading 2, and then normal text. And then I imported it into Sway. Sway is just like PowerPoint, but it's a bit better. It's more modern. If you look at it on your phone, it looks perfect. Unlike a PDF document or a PowerPoint where it's quite small on a phone or a tablet, that kind of thing. So Sway, I would say, is great for course handbooks, different types of teaching materials, and so on and so forth. And again, if your university or school has Office 365, you'll have access to Sway anyway. It's just one of the other apps which you'll have access to. I'll just give you another example of another Sway since you've asked. And by the way, it's also really useful, Sway is, because you can track how many people have looked at something. So just basic analytics, which is great. If you have 20 students in a class, you can see if 20 students have looked. I'll just share a couple of more with you that I've used, that I've shared with other people. So there's one that's on holding digital office hours, and then here's another one which is on moving online. The way you do it is, you just go to your office.com or just in Google type in Microsoft Sway. I haven't used SlidesGo, no, I haven't used that yet. I'm also interested in using Flipgrid. That's another one which it integrates in nicely with Teams, and it allows your students to make a short video of themselves depending on what your subject is. So yeah. Any more questions? You're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn or Twitter. In the presentation, you have my links, my connection links anyway. So sorry if I seem a bit flustered. I've been in a couple of meetings already this morning, so my head is like this big now.
Justin, I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Okay. Well, hopefully that was helpful. If there's anything, just reach out and I'll do my best to help. Thank you very much. I think that's it.
Dustin, I hope you can hear me now. So thank you so much for taking time despite those meetings. I think we're all like having virtual meetings even more than before maybe. So yeah, thank you. So I think this was our last very informative and also interesting session on MS. I'm so sorry that it didn't work out with the screening, but the links are very, very useful. So I'm very happy about this. So this was the last official part of our webinar. Feel free to participate in our poll to let us know if you like the webinar and if you are interested in another one. You are welcome to post all the suggestions for future topics in the chat. And I would also like to point out quickly that we have set up a donation possibility on our EAIR website. If you enjoyed the webinar and would like to have another one, we would be very happy about a small donation to cover the provider costs. Yeah, thank you so much. I think that's all I have left to say. You're welcome to network again further. I hope it worked out before. I will just post the link into the chat as well. And yeah, hope to see you guys again. Thank you so much and bye.